Since moving into this house about a year ago, we have started to tackle the overgrown garden. The first step was clearing the overgrowth, which was a really big project. It involved us getting a wood chipper craned across the house, and 3 men spent 5 days here clearing all of the overgrown brambles, weeds and shrubs that had taken over the garden. Since then, we have been taking care of it, staying on top of the weeds and learning about this space, how it works in the different seasons, and trying to come up with a plan of what we should do next. So the garden is so big that it needs a map. The areas of the garden are the patio, the lawn, the sloped area, the shed area, the wild area, the cardboard garden, 2 oak trees, there is the liquidambar, and then of course in the wild area there is the badger Sett. Here's the top area as it currently stands. Around the edge of the grassed area are some garden beds. The garden beds have a variety of different plants in them. In this top area, it's a flat lawn. It's the biggest area of lawn that's flat in the garden. We have a variety of different plants around the edges. So there's wisteria, which is growing back, and we should get some flowers next year. There is a sycamore tree, which is very beautiful. There's also a white lilac tree in there. There is a very large hydrangea that is white, and heaps of other plants really. We lost a plant here that I didn't want to, and so to add a little bit of privacy back, we have planted these taller trees that we are waiting for them to grow. And since we've been here, I've added in some hydrangeas. Hopefully they will grow and look really nice next year. So in those garden beds as well is where bluebells grow. So around spring, this fills with bluebells and snowdrops, and it's very beautiful. Now we do have this arbor which is falling down, and I can't decide whether it's worth keeping or replacing or just getting rid of it. I kind of like it. I like that the wisteria can grow on it. I liked that there used to be a crabapple tree that looked fabulous that we lost, and I hope that that will grow back. We then have these steps, and the steps go down to the next part of the garden. Behind me is the sloped garden. Now, this is the part of the garden that weaves around, and when we first moved in, it was very overgrown and you couldn't see back. Whereas now that you can see back to the silver birch trees, you couldn't see any of that before. We had a few things cleared here, and there also is one tree which is dying that we need to remove. But when we removed it, we basically only removed overgrowth, brambles. There was a St. John's wort that was gigantic, and it was mostly shrubbery and weeds that we removed, and we kept all of the significant trees. We have a pine tree, we also have a magnolia tree, there is a hazelnut tree, and there are also these conifer type trees that look like Christmas trees, which are in what would have been originally a rockery, and they probably weren't intended to be that large. They're quite beautiful, although they do block the sun a lot and cause a lot of shade in the rest of the garden because of how they're positioned. So they're definitely something that I would consider removing in the future. We have this garden bed that was completely cleared, and all of this has grown since the clearing. So it's grown remarkably quickly actually, even though it's not necessarily, I think, what we want there long term. And in the future, I think that we will come up with some ideas. Right now I don't really have any ideas about what to do down here, so we're just really maintaining it. But we have these beautiful silver birch trees which are currently turning yellow and looking beautiful. As we come down, we get to the stunning liquidambar tree that is currently turning red, and this comes into the next section of the garden, which we call the shed area. Now this is liquidambar tree, which is like a neon green colour in the summer, and then when autumn comes around it turns bright red, and it is phenomenal. We also have an apple tree which previously didn't grow any apples. It had a stunning laurel tree that was choking it out, and the tree surgeons told us that basically we had to choose, and so we got rid of the laurel, sadly, and so we've lost a bit of privacy there. However, what's happened a year later is now it is full of apples. It had very sparse leaves on it before. We haven't pruned it but now that we've left it for a year and it now has access to enough airflow and light, it's got so many apples on it. So I think we made the right choice there. And then after we harvest the apples this year, we will prune back the tree. Firstly, we'll learn how to prune back trees, and then secondly, we will prune it back, and then maybe next year it'll grow even better. So at the moment it's really weighted down with the weight of the apples. So usually the branches are a lot higher up, but that's just a temporary thing. I'm not sure when the apples will be ripe. I've eaten one of them and it was fine, but I think that they need to turn red. I think they will be turning red. So down here we also have this area here of fence. This was where some really large trees were cut down. Previously you couldn't see any of those houses there, but they were cut down. And so what we did was we put these hedges there. So our intention is that they will thicken up and grow and just block all of that out again. And that's the goal. So now we're in the bottom shed area. So we have a shed. So when we first moved in, you couldn't even see it. It was all consumed with brambles. So we cleared it back, and now hopefully those hedges will grow in eventually. We probably need to prune them. There was also a gigantic, I think it was a crabapple tree that was beautiful, but we pruned that right back this year as well because there was an arbor and it blew over in some wind, and so it all got tangled together. In the wild part of the garden, it changes a lot. So there's these two big protected oak trees. So when they're protected, it means that we are not able to trim any of the branches or anything without getting permission. So you need to submit an application and get a professional to come and do it. It doesn't bother me because I love them. I'm glad that they're on our property, and even if they weren't protected, I would never ever get rid of them. So I like that they're there. I think they're really beautiful. But underneath there is basically the ecosystem of an oak tree. So it's quite bare. And what you see is that in spring, the greenery starts to come up, and then it is all snowdrops which appear, and they come through the whole garden, but it's really the most intense on that slope there in the wild section of the garden. So with the cardboard garden, we didn't know that that was there. So we knew loosely that there was something down there, but we didn't realize there was so much space, and we didn't realize it was so flat. So we only discovered it when the tree surgeons cleared everything down there, and they cut an archway out of the trees, and there was this huge flat space. And at first I was really inspired, and I wanted to do a vegetable garden with raised planter beds, maybe even a greenhouse, but over time I've realised that it's a really long way away from the house, and you wouldn't go down there that often, especially in the winter, and it's a little bit, I think it might flood there a little bit. Then what happened was a lot of stinging nettle grew there really quickly, and I didn't want that to get out of hand. So I cleared it all. So for now, we're just using it for compost, because this garden does have a big need for waste disposal. When we are clearing things, we need somewhere to put it. So it kind of makes sense to put it down the back of the furthest part of the garden. So that's what we've started doing. I really don't want to use weed killer in this garden. I would prefer to do everything naturally, and that works as a double benefit because I can use all the cardboard from all my online shopping deliveries. So down that back area, we've started putting all the boxes down there. They're going to decompose. It kills two birds with one stone. So another part of the garden that I haven't mentioned yet is the badgers. In the wild section of the garden, there is a badger sett. And a badger sett is where badgers live. So they live in these burrows, and there's a few entries and exits. And you can see them because they're these holes. And they sort of open up, and it seems like they, at this time of year, every year, they seem to dig a lot. And there are flat areas that build out from the holes, almost like they're building out a platform. As they dig inside, they chuck the dirt out, and it creates this flat platform at the edge of the entrance. There's three, I would say 3 or 4 main entrances, and it seems that sometimes they don't use them all. Sometimes they'll stop using one and use another. We weren't 100% sure when we first moved in if it was badgers or if it was foxes or if it wasn't in use anymore. So I bought a wildlife camera and I set it up, and we got footage of the badgers. So they're active at night, they're nocturnal, so I've never seen them in the day. I've only seen them once in real life. I've only really ever seen them in videos. So yeah, we got footage of them. They scratch themselves a lot. I felt really itchy watching the footage. Anyway, so they live down here. And the consequence of having the badgers is it's kind of cool, but also they eat earthworms. And so they go through the lawn and dig up. And so that's why we have these holes in the lawn. That's where badgers have gone trying to dig for earthworms. I thought originally that they live in a Sett for decades, like 30, 40, 50 years. However, since I've done a little bit more research, some of the research that I've done is saying that they can live in a badger Sett for thousands of years. That's wild. So anyway, they live down here. They don't really bother me apart from digging holes in the lawn. Down in this wild area, the only thing I've really done so far is rake and clear and continue to clear the debris that falls on the path to keep that clear. I have to do that fairly regularly. The other thing that I've done is some logs that we had from the tree surgeons. I have dug them into the ground along the side of the path to just reinforce that, give it a little bit of detail, and also hold back a little bit of the stuff that slides down that little edge, that garden bed. I think the badgers really dig around in there a lot, so having that logs edging has sort of helped with that. I have some regrets about the clearing and a few of the things that we cleared. I know that we needed to do that because I needed to clear things to see what was underneath. I didn't know that the arbor went the full way across the garden. We discovered paths, we discovered garden beds, we discovered all sorts of things that we didn't know were there because it was so overgrown. So it was something that was necessary, but I know that it's now going to take years to grow back the beautiful established plants that we lost. So I think about that a lot. I regret it a lot, but I know that it's part of that learning process. So it is what it is. What I liked about the garden originally was that you couldn't see all the way through, and that as you walked through, you discovered new parts and you couldn't see where you just came from and you couldn't see where you were going next. And I found that quite inspiring, and I'd really like to get that back in the garden as we work on it. But I do want to make sure that all of the plants that we get are plants that I love, and there are some plants here that might be mature and they might be okay, but I don't love them, and so I want to focus on getting ones that I really, really love. So for now, my plans are to just maintain what we have. I'm in the process of accumulating my garden tools, and I want to bring the lawn back to a really good condition. So I'm taking really good care of the lawn. I'm also trying to prune what we have, get things back in order so that by next spring we will start to see a lot of growth, a lot of greenery coming back in, and seeing everything really soften. That is my plan for now. I need to think about what do I tackle first, and I think the obvious answer is something in the middle sloped part of the garden, or perhaps down near the shed, because the closer to the house it goes, the less permanent it will be. We don't know what we're going to do there yet. We don't know what the design of the extension will look like. So we don't know if it's worth even planting anything there. So here is a quick tour of the garden right now, walking through all of those areas. I think it's worth finishing this video just with some beautiful shots of the liquidambar tree, which is currently looking beyond phenomenal. It is so beautiful. In real life, it glows. The footage of it is not edited at all. This is just what it looks like, and it's actually even better in real life. It is glorious.